Welcome back to the lab, y'all. Today, I'm really excited. We're going to be diving into really my head and what I've been able to get into that, into an Excel sheet here. As you see, I've got this up. I love spreadsheets. I love when, I've got I'd say kind of a certain idea or something I want to get out of my mind, and I'm trying to find an easy way to understand it or make it translatable so that way I can express it to others. And I will say spreadsheets are kind of almost a universal language to talk to people. Doesn't matter whether it's business, gamers, a lot of different people, especially and I'll be honest, where really actually I got my start in spreadsheets was gaming, was theory crafting for World of Warcraft and things like that. Still use them a lot for different tabletop games, Warhammer, a lot of different things we play. I use it in business all the time. So spreadsheets are a universal language that I feel like is a great way for us to say, hey, I've got this idea, I want to express it, or hey, I maybe have something and I kind of have this theory or I have this hypothesis and I want to be able to figure it out and see how it works out. And so what I've got here, y'all, and I'm excited to dive into is, I guess, version 4 of my home lab. And really, I'd say it's going to be pretty far from a home lab after we're done here. We're going to be updating a lot of different things. I'm going to be going through what the plan is here, how that all looks like. So I'm really excited. Y'all join me here as we get into the State of the Stack 2024. All right, version 4 of the home lab. Let's jump on in. Really, this is kind of the State of the Stack 2024. I really want to go over and let everybody know currently where the stack's at. I think it's probably been almost 2 years since I've kind of done a State of the Stack video. I'll have to look currently at this time. I'm not sure off the top of my head when I'm recording this, but I am excited to kind of bring hey, here's a State of the Stack. Here's what we're going to be doing, and here's what I'm working on. Here's the different plans to actually make this pretty cool thing. And then after that, hopefully, depending on how things go, I'd really like to share now some of my projects I can't share things on just due to certain agreements, things like that. But there are a lot of projects that I do want to share and be able to bring up. And you may be wondering and just kind of looking at this like, that looks like a lot of numbers. There's a lot of things going on here. I really just kind of want to go over in detail what I'm trying to do here with this stack and what the overall plan is here. So let's kind of start from, I guess, the outside picture view. Let's take a step back and let's look at all this. And if you look at everything, I've got 1 through 42. So if you see 1 through 42, what does that mean? Cell 1 through 42 here. 1 through 42, basically what I'm saying here is that I'm actually looking at a 42 rack here inside right next to me. There's a 42 rack probably within about 4 or 5 feet of me. What is that 42 rack? 42 means that's how many U's, that's how many sections it has in it that I can put rails in. I can be able to actually easily store, slide in, do what I need to for different systems, things like that. And so what I've done with this Excel sheet, bringing up again kind of how I was talking about at the beginning, Excel sheets are a great way to figure things out, label things, kind of define things, design things. I did a lot of this when I used to be a systems engineer, kind of system administrator, and we were having to go to design new infrastructures or figure things out. And we were like, hey, you've got a 25U rack, you got a 45U rack, you got two 42Us, you got a single 42U. It was kind of nice to be able to plan everything out before you actually go in there and start setting everything up, because much like kind of Lincoln Logs or Legos, you don't go in without a plan. You'll be trying to put things in and things just don't want to line up right, so it can get kind of a mess. So it's best to just go with a plan, and that's what I'm going to kind of go with here. So let's start from the very top. So one of the first things I kind of want to go over is I've got a FortiGate 500E I was able to get my hands on. Pretty excited about it. I'm actually going to be paying for all of the different pieces of software for it to all get enabled, so that way it's fully protected. The reason being is that I'm still actually using pfSense, an old version of pfSense. I'm not proud of it, but I'm still using it because I've not made it, wanted to make the switch over to OpenSense or any other thing. A little frustrated with how all that's been going and all that stuff, so I've kind of just stayed where I am until now. Now that I've got a FortiGate 500E, my plan is to get a secondary one. I really want to put those in an HA stack, a high availability stack, so that they're able to talk to one another, get everything set up, work with each other. That's the overall plan. I've got one right now. That the plan is to go to a single one until I can get to HA here in the future. I found some on eBay, which I plan on getting and probably activating. They're about $500, give or take, depending on some different things of what's going on there. But the ultimate goal is to replace my current firewall, which is running as a VM. Just so everybody knows, if I actually come down here, you'll see that how I have this DMZ host 1. This is actually just kind of host. The reason I call it DMZ host is because it's kind of running all the stuff that runs on my DMZ network along with my firewall, some other things. So the ultimate goal is to actually get pfSense off of these and get free up some things on these hosts where they can do more external hosting for websites, applications, things like that that are actually on the DMZ side of things that maybe aren't doing the heavy lifting of, say, all of the databases and things like that, but they're doing a lot of the front end stuff like that. So that's going to be the ultimate goal for those. But we'll kind of get down to these later. What I'm trying to do is I'd like to get where the 500E is now my firewall, and getting away from pfSense so everything's ran through the 500E. What's great about the 500E is that it does have two 10 gigabit SFP plus ports on it. I do plan to use those. It's more than capable of getting 10 gig out of those and using that. Those will be connected over here to our core switch, and this is where it gets kind of interesting. If you see here, I've kind of got like a little cluster of things here. The plan is that there's going to be these two 500Es, and then on the back side of the 500Es inside the 42U, and yes, I have measured it out, there's enough room. There'll be two 10 gig switches, and there'll be a 10 gig core. That'll be the core switch that kind of everything goes through after the 500Es. So the 500Es will feed into the 10 gig core switch here, and then the 10 gig core switch will feed two additional 10 gig switches, which will be feeding down to everything else. Now, these are just Unify XG. They're the 16 port units that they have. They're great. I've had them for a number of years. Still have them. They've been working awesome. Down here, I've got a 1 gig. It's going to be a 48 port, 750 watt Unify with two 10 gig uplink, SFP. So that'll be plugged into the core switch. So all of this here will be 10 gig networked, and most of the whole stack and everything actually in the house will be 10 gig networked. There will be a ton of 1 gig lines, and I'll get more into that. There's actually going to be a whole update for the house. I'm pretty excited. We've networked the whole house, things like that. So I'll be having a separate update video getting into that and kind of going over, hey, here's everything we've done. But going over just the kind of core network again, dual 500, E 4 gates. We've got a core switch, a 10 gig core switch, two other 10 gig switches that'll be kind of fed from that core switch to do everything, a 1 gig 48 port that'll be fed from that. And then I'll be hopefully getting an IP KVM with everything that's going on here. It's actually one of the few things I don't have. I found one on eBay I'm probably going to purchase. It'd be nice because I have everything here. It'd be nice from when I'm sitting on my computer if I could just go ahead and hop in and take a look and be able to manage things. And I don't have to constantly get up and go over there and try to mess with things. So that's going to be the ultimate goal. And that's kind of going to be the first top 4 use, I guess you could say, within this data center, which I know that's insane, right? There's that much, and I've only talked about the first 4 U's of what we're putting there. I do have this open slot that's going to be right here. Probably just going to put like a little blank panel there, just covered up, so I'll be basically the whole thing, because then the rest of the way down, the whole thing is going to be completely filled. So take a sip of coffee here, everybody. All right, so let's jump in. Let's keep moving down. Let's get to some of these servers and start going over. What does this mean? What is this doing? Why do I have this? So R230 CMC server. So this is kind of my central management console server. This is where Veeam is going to be running from. This is where I'm going to be able to go ahead and I'll probably be putting vCenter, unless it all depends. You used to be able to put vCenter on Windows. It's actually been that long since I've set up vCenter. I actually think now, if I remember correctly, it actually is a separate. And it's been a while, but I think I actually have to boot it up, and it'll probably be running over here, but that's perfectly fine. The main point of my CMC server is I want a physical server that I can remote into, that's got iDRAC, that's got some different capabilities that I can manage to be able to, so that way if something happens with one of my hosts or something's going on here, virtual machine goes down, I can't get in, I will always have this physical server. Like I said, it's also going to be the thing that's going to be running Veeam. I may end up running Veeam on some of these hosts. We'll see. It all depends on how some of the stuff does, but and as we dig into that and as we go forward more and I start designing more, we'll definitely figure out where we want to put it. But overall, let's look at this CMC as like, hey, this is where I can get in and be able to manage everything. This is kind of my window in to all the different stuff if I need it to be. Especially the other thing I could do is I can go ahead and set this server up. Say if I needed to get into any of the switches and I only had console commands and things like that, I could set this up to where there's a serial connection so I could connect into some of those things like that. So that's what's really nice about having this physical server, is I could do some different things like that. Jumping down to these R430s. So this is where it's going to get a little interesting with the R430s here. Currently, one of the R430s is actually set up as my physical Plex server. And it has an NVIDIA P1000 into it. Pretty cool. Does some pretty good things. My ultimate goal is to actually take my Plex and I'd like to move it back over, probably onto the R740 stack once I get everything set up there. I'd like to move Plex over there. I do have 2 P2000s that I'd like to just probably go ahead and dedicate to the Plex server. I think I can only do 1. I think there's a way to do 2. we'll figure out. If anybody knows, drop a comment down below. Let me know, because before I dig too deep. But that's the ultimate goals. I do have a P2000. It won't work in the R430 because of its size and because of how it sets up. So would like to get Plex moved over to the R740 stack, so that way it's running as a virtual machine that I can just pass through that GPU through, and then actually turn the R430 that Plex is running on currently as a physical host, turn it back into an actual host. Because what I'd like to do is I'd like to have these two R430s set up as a cluster and being redundant within each other, so that they can take on things, different loads. They are also currently dual 12-core CPUs with 64 gigs of RAM. I'd like to add another 196 gigs, get them up to 256 gigs a piece, just because there are some larger web applications I'd like to run on them. There won't be, I'd say, database sizes or anything. The databases and everything I plan to run are all the R740 stacks, and that we'll talk about here in a bit. But right now, the R430s, I'd say, are pretty good with where I'm at. That's why I don't have like the RAM on there. Over here on this side, I don't really have the addition of RAM yet. They do have 64 gigs of RAM each, which is quite a bit for some of the stuff I plan on doing right now with both of them. So I'm more than happy with where they're at. Right now, a lot of this is I need more data storage, and we'll get down here in a bit with the new TrueNAS server. But that's where I'd say a bulk of everything is being pushed towards. But let's jump down to the R740. So R740s. The R740s they're pretty awesome. They've got dual 8-core processors and 768 gigs of RAM. I've got two of them right now. I've got VMH01 and VMH02. The plan is to buy VMH03 here probably sometime in the summer here. And I want to upgrade all three of all the hosts, all the virtual hosts, to 8168 processors, which would be dual 24-core. Pretty great, 48-thread procs or CPUs with 768 gigs of RAM in each one of these servers. The ultimate goal being, because I do have some very large databases and data sets that I want to be running and being able to do and execute upon, so I do need some beefier servers with lots of RAM, lots of CPU power that can do some massive cooling over them, and that's why I've decided to go with these R740s. Considering I already have two of them, it's not going to be too crazy. It's less than $700, or I should say $750 for me to get the two CPUs for my for just one host. So pretty excited about that. And then if we come on down here, this is where I really want to get into things. This is all the really cool stuff that's going to be going on, and where I'd say a lot of the meat of the different upgrades and what I'm going to be doing is going to be happening. But the Dell R730, so I'm pretty excited about this. As you can see here, I'm going to end up spending about $1,125 on the server. I actually have already bought the server. It's sitting right next to me here. Look, I can actually hit it. It's right here. So I'm pretty excited. I already had a Dell R730. I'm even more excited because when I bought it, they actually sent it with 8 64 gig sticks. And why that's impressive is I bought it with 512 gigs of RAM. They gave me 512 gigs of RAM, but it can actually go up to 1.5 terabytes. Like there's another 16 open slots, 16 slots open of RAM. Like each one of those can be 64 gigs of RAM. Like I'm really excited about it, and my plan is to actually probably utilize that. I'd love to get up to 1.5 terabytes of RAM inside this R730, especially for what I intend to do with it. It is going to be my main TrueNAS server. So with that being said, let's kind of break down what I'm going to be doing with this thing. It already has dual 14-core processors, so I'm really excited about that. Dual 14-core processors, 512 gigs of RAM right now, upgradable to 1.5 terabytes. The ultimate goal is then to run 3 and full expansion. They're called they're IBM 3512s. I already actually have 4 of them. I'm going to get another 3 because I want to have a backup one. I really like them. They're JBOD units. They've got dual 6 gigabit per second SAS modules on them, which I'm more than happy with. They do fine. They've been running great here with everything I'm needing to do. So my ultimate goal is to have 48 3.5-inch, I should say, drives into this system. So the Dell R730 I have is an XD. It's a Dell R730 XD, I should say, which means it's got 12 3.5-inch on the front. It's got 2.5-inch on the back. So it's really great because if I do want to put some L2 ARC, which I'm going to be honest, I originally thought about putting L2 ARC in here, but now that I know I can go up to 1.5 terabytes of RAM, I don't think I'm going to be putting any L2 ARC, and we're going to see how everything runs. Like I'd rather just keep adding more RAM, and then knowing that I can add more RAM is fantastic. The goal is here too. I've already purchased a majority of these drives that are on the way right now. I'd say we're probably 40% of the way purchased on drives. I'd say I've probably ordered about 40 drives, 35 drives, 40. It's been 40 now, yeah. 16 terabyte drives, which is going to be great, but I need 48 drives per each one. I'm actually building out 2 TrueNAS servers. One of them is going to be the current R720 I have that I'm going to go ahead and rebuild into kind of my backup server. That's where all of my backups are going to go. I'm going to enable dedupe. It's going to be a fantastic server, while the R730 is where all the VMs run. Everything else runs there. So in total, I am going to get 96 16 terabyte drives, which brings me up to about like 1,536 terabytes of total raw storage. Once I do some RAID ZFS 2, which is what I plan to do on both of those, so we have double parity, I can go ahead and lose 2 drives and still try to rebuild and hopefully be safe on things. I'll have probably about 540 terabytes of usable space on each one of those systems, so a little over half a petabyte. I'm really excited about that. This has kind of been my like half petabyte build I've been calling it. So that way, half a petabyte of usable 3.5-inch storage that's just going to be running on 8 hard drives. This is going to be great. Like I said, 512 gigs of RAM, dual 14-core processors. We'll be running 10 gig through the stack, so there'll be redundant 10 gig for iSCSI to all the hosts that'll be running up through the switches. So I'm really excited because there'll be multiple ways for it to get data, host data, and to kind of take it even a little bit further. I actually have 3 3524s already. I just need to buy the expansion unit. So my plan is to utilize 2 of those 3524s. Third one's going to be for parts, fans, things like that if stuff breaks. But I'd like to go ahead and get the IBM expansion modules and throw them in the 3524s and really add those now to the 730 also. I found some really good prices on some drives on eBay for these 1.6 terabyte SSDs that have some really good smart data on them. It looks really good. Like at $119 a piece, I'd be pretty good getting into it. And after everything's done, like right now, if you look down here below, there's about 76.8 terabytes of usable space, or I should say raw space that I have. I'd probably have about 50 terabytes of just pure SSD after I do everything. I'm really trying to figure out what I want to do. I may end up just doing mirror. I don't know. I'm looking more into SSDs and how I actually want to handle that on TrueNAS, because I've actually never done a pure SSD pool, which is something I want to do. Because I think it'd be fun to experiment on. And if I can get it right, I feel like it'd be really good for some of the larger data sets that I'm working on and doing things like that. Some of the data sets, it'd be nice to be able to store or have kind of like, let's say, a Redis database server that's over there on the SSDs to be able to cache where maybe things are to be able to get things faster. So there's some different things I've got planned that I'd really like to, I'd say, take advantage of, look into, and figure out with building out this whole new, this new TrueNAS server, which I'm really excited. Like this is going to be a really cool thing to do. And the data center, and I want to call it a home lab, but it's not really anymore. The data center is getting bigger. There's going to be a lot of stuff. I'm hosting more for things. I've got a lot of different things going on. I'm working on a lot of cool projects too that require a ton of data. So this is just icing on the cake, I guess, of why I'm doing all this. So the R730, that's going to be the new TrueNAS system. It's sitting here. It's not there yet. We're probably about a month or 2 out until we get everything set up. I'm going to be videotaping all of that. That's why it's going to take a little while. I've decided I want to document the process more for myself. I think it'd just be really cool to take a look back. I've been looking back at a lot of my videos for like the last few months and just being like, man, it's really cool to see some different things. So I really want to document this process more. So I'd like to be able to look back, see some of the things that we've done, how things have grown. And it's kind of a cool mashup to see across the whole entire thing. So I'm going to be, doing more of this where I'm going to be trying to document everything that's going on. You may even see some of the kids involved, things like that. My daughter's actually been getting into programming classes. She's taking Python class right now at the age of 8. She's been doing really good at it. I'm impressed. They're doing nothing crazy, just learning how to make rock, paper, scissors and just doing some of the basics. But you will see more of that going on because I really want to document this process and show everybody what's going on. But let's get back into some of this other stuff here before I get carried away into that. You know how it can be. So let's get over here. So the Dell R720, getting down to the 26U here. Dell R720 is actually going to be currently here. It's actually my current FreeNAS server, so I'll actually bring this over right here. Here's my current FreeNAS server. Oh, it'd be great if I could go ahead and bring that all back up. Give me a second here. All right, so current FreeNAS server, doing pretty well. It's got 512 gigs of RAM. It's got dual 12-core processors. It's a R720, it's been awesome to have. It's been fantastic. Problem is, as you can see here, I've got about 14 terabytes of data left. I need a lot more space than that. I do have one thing that's probably going to take close to 100 terabytes of data to be able to take care of and manage. So what I'm trying to do is I need to be able to figure out, okay, how can I be able to take care of this, get this knocked out, get this taken care of. So once I get that done, that's what my plan is hey, let's get this updated. Let's try to figure out what I can do to replace the R720 and get it kind of in a different spot And that's what it's going to be doing here. Is it's actually going to be coming down over here to become my backup server, as I just said a bit ago. It's going to be doing the same thing. I'm going to have 16 terabyte drives in it, 48 slots, so there'll be 48 3.5-inch drives, 16 terabytes each. So same thing, 540 terabytes of usable space. The thing that's going to be a little different about this R720 and the R730 is I will have dedupe enabled for these larger VDEVs, because my plan is I want to make this a Veeam backup server. So I want to try to see what I can accomplish. I don't know how many people are familiar with the different dedupe devices out there, but there's a lot of great backup devices, and even Veeam itself does some great deduplication. But what I want to try to see is, hey, is there any deduplication I can get on the block level? Because while Veeam does really good on taking care of itself, it's still going to store that data somewhere. So my ultimate goal is I wanted to see, can TrueNAS, man, that's been a bit, sorry y'all, TrueNAS, I really want to check out its dedupe capabilities. I never got to check it out when it was FreeNAS, and now that I have the hardware here, I have the capabilities for it. I'd like to see, hey, is this going to be something I could do? I'm probably going to spin up a smaller VDEV, I'd say maybe like 30 to 100 terabytes on it, and try to back it up and see how it does. Nothing that if something happens to it, I can move it off, things like that. I don't want to take up everything. So the ultimate goal here is with this, turn this to a giant backup server, check out dedupe, hope that dedupe works, because if it does, and I can get dedupe to work on TrueNAS, plus I can get dedupe to work on Veeam, it'd be fantastic. If I could fit, let's say, petabyte to petabyte and a half of data on half a petabyte because of deduplication, I'd be so happy. There'd be a lot of data I'd be able to store here. It'd be really great. Especially if I need to restore something, especially with the longevity things I'm doing, I ultimately want to be able to back up all my stuff. I've got a lot of different, let's say, training and simulations and some different transformers that I have running that are actually trying to take care of. So I'd like to make sure that snapshots are taken, those are managed, because if something does happen, power blips, stuff like that, I want to be able to take care of that. And kind of, I guess, with power blips, let me kind of jump into the bottom here. So I do have a smart, an APC SMT 6000. It is plugged into a dedicated 50 amp breaker that I had wired over to the system. So really, really big system. Problem is that the batteries are going out on it. I did find some online. It's going to take quite a bit. It's about $525 per pack. And it takes 4 per each one of those things. And I have quite a bit of those shelves. So I've got to get 2 new batteries for the very top unit, for the head unit, and then I've got to get an additional 8 batteries to fill out the rest. So there'll be 10 batteries total. Once those are done, I'm hoping that when I have everything spun up, that I at least have enough time to shut everything down. I think between all of that and everything that's running, I should have enough time. Those are pretty big batteries. SMT's a pretty big beast. If not, we're gonna have to figure something out, because I definitely am gonna not have any space. Like, if you can look here, we're down at the bottom here, 42 U's. So all 42 U's of that whole entire data, like that whole entire rack, are gonna be completely full. I'll have this one little U up here, but in actuality, there's gonna be a switch back there. So like, there's not gonna be much space that I can really do up front here. Everything else is gonna be completely full. So just, I'm excited about this, and kind of down here, just so everybody knows, I'm trying to be as transparent as I can with costs, what this looks like, what's it look like I'm building, what's going on. If you look down here, I've got a total number of 96 drives, like I was saying earlier, that I've got to buy. I've got to get 48 drives for each FreeNAS for just the 3.5-inch for the 16 terabytes. I found actually a really good deal, and actually I need to mark those back down. So I found a really good deal for $149.99 for some Seagate Exos, the refurbished drives from eBay. I'm completely fine with using those. They've got great smart checks and everything on them. I'm completely full, completely cool. Sorry, with buying them. Like, they've checked out. I've used them fine. I even have drives still here from 2009 that are being used in my current TrueNAS system that have not had any issues or anything with them. So I'm fine with buying these drives, and there's so many of them on eBay that if something fails, I'm just going to buy another one. I'll pop it in. The way that I'm building out my TrueNAS systems is going to be groups of 8. So there'll be 8 drives. There'll be 6 VDEVs of 8, or I should say 6 groups of 8 drives. In each one of those groups will have 8 16 terabyte drives and be put into a RAID Z2. So that way 2 drives can fail, and I'll be able to still have some parity and be able to repair those. So hopefully between how that's set up, everything else, if anything needs to happen and I have to re-sliver, it should go rather quickly. And then jumping over here to the 48 drives, this is actually going to be the solid state drive system that I want to set up. And then if we come down here, here's the total server cost of what it's going to cost. It's not drive cost to get everything set up. So all in all, looking at about $31,000 this year. That's going to end up putting into the data center. And being able to do things and get things. But that is just part of, when you're when you're hosting things, when you're doing things, and your work and what you do revolves around, that's just part of what you have to do to keep things up and running. So I'm really excited here as we get things going. The half a petabyte build is underway. All the upgrades to this, to the servers are underway. The virtual hosts, like this is really exciting for me, and I appreciate everybody joining me on this journey. Like I said, there'll be a lot more videos coming out as we get further. I'll probably have one here soon just covering the new R730 and me getting all excited because they, sent us 512 gigs of RAM and it's 8 64 gig sticks, and there's so many free spots open. It's amazing. So once again, thank you everybody, and as always, I'll see you in the lab.